Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, October the 9th, race number 9 at Keeneland. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 2 Buffalo Trace Franklin County Stakes. We're going 5.5 furlongs on the turf for fillies and mares. You can download free Formulator Pass performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Access them, handicap along with us, and Mike Beer, the key to this race is whether the ultra classy number 10 Got Stormy really wants to sprint. 5.5's a little sharp for her.
I mean, that is really the only question. It seems like, Dan. I mean, based on her last two races, it kind of seems like she's back into good form. She handled the 6.5 last time. Now she's going to cut back another furlong. I think that could be tough for her, but man, if she handles it, I just don't really see how this field can beat her.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector for this race. Not surprisingly, in a turf sprint, we're expecting some speed. Jakarta, the number 5, loves to be forwardly placed. The 3, Surrender, now retains her early speed. I'm not sure if the 6, Violent Times, is going to be as close as Timeform US has it, but the 3 and the 5, they're going to provide enough pace, and Got Stormy, the 10, will try to stay within range and try to avoid traffic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she does have plenty of tactical speed, it seems like. So we'll see if she can get into the position she likes to be in, early on in this race, because it could be a little sharp for her, Dan, and there should be a pretty good pace going on here. So we'll just see if she pulls the right trip.
Now, the number 1 chicklet we see at the back of the Timeform US pace projector is Bohemian Bourbon. And were you surprised that Bohemian Bourbon was so close to the pace last time out in the ladies sprint, went in against Got Stormy, going 6.5? She was right up close. She tired. She probably didn't like the soft going. Maybe 6.5 is a little far. I think they take her back to her Woodbine race for 2 starts back, where I think the trouble comment is a little bit overstated.
Yeah, I think the trouble comment's a lot overstated. She was never really blocked in that race. She was inside and behind horses, but she was clear the entire way, driving, never got stopped, and was, in my opinion, just third best in that race. She ran fine. It is interesting that she was close last time, Dan, though, because both of her Kentucky Downs races, last year in September, and then this one, where they went 6.5, she was up close both times. It worked fine for her last year. She won going 6.5 in Kentucky Downs. It didn't work this time. Our last time. Maybe soft turf had something to do with it. I think it was the competition.
Into Mystic, the number 2's come a long way since she won an 870-yard dash at Los Alamitos in April, and you just have to think turf's made all the difference. She is a turf sprinter. She looked good 2 starts back, pushing the pace inside, shuffled back a little bit into the pocket, got to the outside, got it done. And last time out in the ladies' turf, I think the 6.5 was a little far for her, Mike. She tried to make a bid into it from the outside. She flattened out. Cutting back will work for her, and she can trip out.
No, I agree with all that stuff. Based on her races 2 and 3 back, you'd have to think that she's a strong player in this race. She should be forward in this race. Getting back to 5.5 helps her, and she's got 2 fast races on her card.
I feel similarly about the 3, Surrender now. I just think 6.5 at Kentucky Downs is very testing for her, especially over soft ground, and that the turn back in distance works. That being said, her current form is not good. It just doesn't seem like she's come back as good in 2020, and if Jakarta's breathing down her neck early, she could be in for a long afternoon.
Yeah, the trip may not work out for her. The distance is fine, but the trip may not work out for her, and you're right that her recent form just really isn't that strong. We'll see if she can, finally take a step forward. She does have speed. Maybe she shakes loose early, and it gives her best chance to win, but I'm a little skeptical of her.
Tomlin's 50-1 on the morning line, so I'm not going to be too hard against her. She was stakes placed the last time she stepped on the turf against Jojo Air, a horse that we're not really big fans of. You can forgive her last 2 races, although on synthetic, she usually does well, and last time out in the Ontario fashion, she underperformed in a big way. She was pretty much done with 5/16 to run.
Yeah, that wasn't a good performance. Her 2 turf sprints earlier in the summer I guess they were okay, Dan. I mean, when she won that race at Golden Gate going 5, she didn't exactly get loose on the lead there. I mean, she took some pressure in that race and was able to shake free and win, but it was only an 84 buyer. A race like that is not going to get it done against this field.
Jakarta was second in the Caress at Saratoga 2 starts back, finishing ahead of 3 other next out winners. And then Michael Maker just found a really clever spot, a $25,000 starter allowance at Kentucky Downs. On paper, she couldn't lose that race. And as we turn into the stretch, Jakarta's speed was simply too much for them. She took them all the way on the lead, and it was a nice confidence-boosting performance for Jakarta, who turned for home with a clear advantage, sprinted on home to the wire. It's not going to be as easy on the lead this time around.
I didn't think so. Dan, I'm still having a tough time trying to decide how much I like this horse. I don't really love any of her races. I recognize that she's improved for Maker. He did find a great spot for her last time. I respect her speed. I'm just not that big a fan of this horse.
Of the horses with the most early speed, however, she might be in the best form, and she could be turning into the stretch with the lead. Violent Times the 6 is a very intriguing runner. Let's go back to her most recent turf start, the Captiva Island Stakes, 4 starts back, and she's kind of inside. I really didn't love this race. The winner, Girls Know Best, at 3-5, controlled it throughout, but she tried hard to finish third, and her recent dirt races are okay. The plethora of layoffs concerns me.
That concerns me as well. And you know what? At the end of the day, she just hasn't really turned out to be that good. I was sort of a fan of hers early on, and she's lost me in her recent races. She seems like a solid sort of allowance type, maybe a listed stakes kind of type. I don't know if she can beat a field like this one, Dan.
Winning envelopes really cutting back in distance, but she's run well closing from far off fast paces at 5.5 in the past. She's versatile as it pertains to distance. I wonder if she likes a little bit of cut in the ground. All 3 of her lifetime turf wins have come on off turf, but she rallied well last time out while no match for Got Stormy.
Yeah, just was never going to beat Got Stormy, but she did finish up pretty well in there. That just seems to be her MO, Dan. I don't think it really matters what distance you try her at. She's just going to run late every time. It's usually too late, but every once in a while she'll get there. They've sprinted her 2 out of her last 3. I think she's run well in both of those races. I'll use this horse at a price.
I can look at the 8 change of control one of 2 different ways, and at 15-1 on the morning line, I'm going to look at it from a positive standpoint. And the positive standpoint is she's dirtied up. Her 2 starts this form cycle, 1 came on dirt, which is not her surface, and 2 last time out. Again, soft course, down inside. I'm willing to forgive it. The other way to look at it is she loves Churchill Downs, and her big races have come at Churchill Downs 3 and 4 starts back, and she just might not be able to translate that form anywhere else.
That's possible. She did run well in those 2 wins, though. And she has, in her defense, she's run pretty well at the fairgrounds, too. I mean, they're not all victories, and she couldn't quite get it done against stakes horses, but she's run well at the fairgrounds. I don't know. I can see her getting a decent trip in this race. As you mentioned, she's a great price on the morning line. I have no argument with this horse in this spot, really.
To me, Stillwater Cove's the most fascinating horse in the race because she was one of those Wesley Ward-trained debut winners that he thought enough of to send overseas and run at Royal Ascot, and then upon returning, immediately won a stakes race at Saratoga. Her final start as a 3-year-old was this performance, and perhaps most importantly, this race was at Keeneland. I like the way she blew this field away. She got a really nice in-out trip, but once she's in the clear, she's in the black cap right now, she just makes the lead, and she just puts these other fillies and mares right to bed. It was a nice performance. The question I have for you is, where has she been?
Yeah, the layoff is a bit of a concern. It's a very long one for a filly who you felt like maybe could have had a decent 4-year-old campaign. Unfortunately, first she's just getting started. But everything else that you said, I agree with, Dan. I mean, she was a good 2-year-old. A couple of those races, too, where she did not win, she had really bad trips, in particular that Soaring Softly at Saratoga. I mean, she just could not get clear in there and had no chance by the time things did open up for her. I thought she was good last time winning that race. We just talked about Change of Control, who we both think is okay. She blew that horse out of the water in that spot. So if she takes a step forward as a 4-year-old, and I realize off the layoff, maybe that's a concern. But if she does, she could be right there at the end of this race.
Now, we've questioned whether Got Stormy is returned in 2020 as the same mare that did so many good things last year. Still, are you surprised that Cassie's trying to turn her into a turf sprinter? She ran 6 triple-digit buyers at a mile last year. This year, maybe she's lost a step. She's still multiple grade 1 placed at a mile. Let's go back and watch this race before you answer that question. It was the ladies' sprint. Doesn't a 6.5 furlong race at Kentucky Downs, though, play longer?
I think it does play longer. And listen, she, thoroughly dominated this field. And there are several of these horses that she's running against again on Friday back in this spot. But I mean, she just dominated this field. But you're right. It's 6.5. Does not resemble a 5.5 turf sprint in any way, shape, or form. It's a totally different kind of race. And then to answer your question, yes, I'm very surprised that he's trying to turn her into a sprinter now. I mean, she ran fine in the 4-star, Dave. I really do feel like, Dan, I don't know if you agree with this or not. I feel like the Got Stormy of 2019 would have won the 4-star, Dave, 2 starts back, and she didn't win it. She settled for second best in there. Still, she's run well in her last 2 starts. She's way the horse to beat in here. I don't know how much I want her at, 4 to 5, though, cutting back to 5.5 furlongs.
It's certainly a fair point because it's a great unknown. Is she sharp enough to stay close to what should be a very honest pace? I do agree with you. The 2019 edition of Got Stormy runs down Halliday, no matter what the pace advantage was that Halliday had that day. Let's talk about Shalone. Shalone, by the way, is no slouch on her best day. Second in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint back in 2018. But the same questions that we have with Got Stormy, even on a greater scale with Shalone. Has she come back as good this year? She had a little bit of trouble last time out in the Illman North where she kind of stumbled at the start, and then a sharp horse on the lead just got the jump on her. We talked about her when she was entered on turf earlier this month, and there's just not a lot of turf in this pedigree.
Yeah, there's not. And again, it just sort of feels like a little bit of a desperation move for, a mare who at one time was a really good dirt sprinter, and now it feels like she's lost a step or two. They're going to try something different here. She's going to be a price in this race, it seems like. So I'm not going to argue too hard against her, but she's not for me.
I think Ambassador Luna is a little bit of a sleeper at a giant price, especially if the turf course comes up soft. She surprised some folks last time out in her dirt debut by winning the Unbridled Sydney. I think it shows she's in really good form. And 2 back over that soft turf at Ellis Park, she set a legitimate pace, and Into Mystic was just better than she was. Into Mystic was just better than she was the last half of furlong. But I think she has enough speed to extricate herself from this difficult far outside post and work out a good outside stalking trip.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the other thing I like about her too, Dan, even though she was on the lead 2 back and ran a career best Buyer speed for her, she doesn't need to be on the lead to be effective. So if he can just get forward from that outside post and sit out there, I think that could work out for her. I thought she was one of the more interesting, bigger prices in the race.
Let's take a look at our top picks for Friday's race of the day, competitive graded stakes action at Keeneland. You like Stillwater Cove. You've always been a fan of this horse, and usually you worry about layoffs, but with a guy like Wesley Ward, you really don't worry about anything, do you?
Yeah, I don't worry about the layoffs so much. I mean, obviously, it feels like something must have gone wrong for her to be making her four-year-old debut this late in the season. But overall, I think this filly's pretty good, and it did seem like the last time we saw her, she was headed in the right direction, Dan. I don't know if she can beat Got Stormy off this kind of a layoff, but 5.5, I think it plays more to this horse's advantage than it does Got Stormy. So she's going to be a price in here. She's the only one I wanted to try to beat her with.
I think you have the right idea in trying to beat her. I just didn't really love anyone else, and I have a feeling that Cassie just might be right here with Got Stormy, and if she can work out a trip, she's just the best horse in this race. Into Mystic, for me, is a little bit interesting, simply because with this inside post, I think she could work out a pocket trip, and I think the speeds in front of her might be a little bit questionable, so the trip could really work out for her. Mike's going with the price. I love it. 9, 10, 7, 12 with Stillwater Cove. I'm going with the logical Got Stormy, 10, 2, 7, and 12. It's Friday's race of the day. It's the Grade 2 Franklin County Stakes and has an approximate post time of 5:30 Eastern. Best of luck.